Hey everybody, welcome to Whiskey and War Stories. This is season 4, episode 3. Excited for today's guest from an arena that we've never had a guest from before. So stay tuned, should be a really exciting show. I'll turn it over to you, Ryan, to introduce him.
All right, thanks, Jaime. So today's we have the pleasure of hosting on our humble podcast the district attorney for the county of San Bernardino, Jason Anderson. Jason has been a member of the California State Bar since 1997. He graduated from Regent University Law School in Virginia in 1996. Mr. Anderson served as a deputy district attorney for the county of San Bernardino from 1998 until 2014. In this capacity, he worked as a prosecutor handling a variety of serious cases, particularly crimes against children unit for 13 years. Mr. Anderson was first elected San Bernardino County District Attorney in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. He is currently seeking re-election in 2026. Mr. Anderson has been married for 30 years. He has 2 children and 2 grandchildren. District Attorney Anderson's mission includes respecting and inspiring confidence in the rule of law, both inside and outside the office, in collaboration and ensuring justice with excellence, integrity, and compassion, stewarding public resources to hold the guilty accountable, support victims of crime, and honoring the humanity of all involved in the criminal justice system, and restoring a culture of service and accountability in the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office. Without further ado, please welcome the DA himself, Jason Anderson. Jason.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate that. It's a very nice intro.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. I was nervous to ask you to come on because I know you're busy and you do a lot of stuff in our podcast that has 8 viewers. So when you said yes, we were tickled pink. So
no, happy to do it. You guys do great work over there, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. So Ryan, before we get into it, you have the dedication, and this week's dedication was given to us by Jason, our guest.
So Jason chose Officer Russell Miller from the Chino Police Department. On Tuesday, February 1st, in the year 2000, he died after being struck by a drunk driver while conducting a traffic stop at 1:18 in the morning on Schaefer, just east of Central Avenue in Chino. As Officer Miller walked from his patrol car toward the stopped pickup truck during the traffic stop, he was unfortunately struck from behind by the vehicle with such force that the officer was thrown into the truck bed. How horrible. The suspect fled the scene, but was arrested shortly afterward after crashing into a telephone pole. Officer Miller was airlifted to a local hospital where he succumbed to his injuries approximately 10 hours later. The 21-year-old driver, was convicted of gross vehicular manslaughter and felony hit and run and sentenced to 15 years in prison. A United States Navy Vietnam War veteran, Officer Miller served the Chino Police Department for 12 years. He was survived by his wife and 3 children. So here's a cheers to Officer Miller from Chino PD.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Jason, did you have any connection with Officer Miller?
I sure did, Ryan. And at the time, back in the day, the Chino Courthouse was still open down there. It has been closed, and it was a great little spot because the PD was right there. And I had cases with Russell Miller. And actually, what is so poignant about it is that his family was just phenomenal. His kids were little. They've grown up to be phenomenal. And I still have a initialed subpoena from him in my possession. He was going to come testify in a trial for me the following Monday. So I held on to that. I have it in a spot where it ages well, but it does have in blue ink his actual initials on it. And so he's just a great guy, just loved. And I think one of the things that made the impact on me with Officer Miller was the fact that I hadn't been a DA for very long. So that was the first line of duty death that I'd experienced in law enforcement since I was a prosecutor. And then to have known him and had him on cases. And I talked to him about the case that was upcoming that following Monday with the subpoena. And it was nice that the PD let me hang on to it. So great guy, great family, great agency.
That's awesome. Yeah, some of the stuff we handle in Pomona, as Pomona cops, gunfire, gang members. One of the things that always scares me is like CHP on the freeway, cars just passing by at a just crazy amount of speed. That's anytime we had a rare occurrence where we were on the freeway, I was just like on my toes. So I can't imagine being on city streets and then being hit at that speed, it seems, by a drunk driver. Horrible.
Yeah, and it's nice that they every year they do a 5K in his memory in the city.
Yep.
And it's very well attended. There's a statue there, there's a little monument, so it's nice.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And cheers to him. So I feel like I'm a broken record, Jason, when I say this, because every episode I always say I'm really excited to have this guest on. It's a really special guest. But in your particular case, this is unique because although all of our guests are special, we've never had a district attorney. We never had an attorney, much less the district attorney on our show. So we are flattered and a bit fangirling.
Thank you.
So it will be interesting to see your perspective from your side of the house on some of the things that we're going to talk about. You're the 36th DA of San Bernardino County, took over from Mike Ramos, and you just won your third term as a district attorney, and running it there with Sheriff Coroner Shannon Dykes, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So we're very happy to have you on. This will be interesting. So our understanding is you became a prosecutor sometime in the 90s and spent a number of years handling, I'm sure some of the toughest cases imaginable, especially when we talk about like crimes against children and those type of things. What originally drew you to the prosecution field instead of another area of law?
Jaime, I was always, from a young kid, I was always interested in mysteries, in crime, and particularly real crime. I grew up in a very rural area in West Virginia. There were 800 people in the town that I lived in. There was not even a stoplight. To give you an idea of the size of the town, we'd come through after playing sports in high school, and I lived about a mile and a half from downtown. I say downtown, the middle of town. And the bus driver would say, "Hey, you want us to drive you to your house, or is it okay to drop you up here at midnight?" And I said, "No, it's fine here." So you're walking around as a high schooler or junior high at midnight down a street, and nobody was worried about what would happen. We had a little library in our town, it was a double wide trailer, and I used to go down there all the time and just read every book I could get my hands on about crime. And it was just kind of weird that I just was fascinated by what the process of, number one, why people committed crimes, and then what was the process that held people responsible. So at a young age, I said, "Hey, I want to be in court." I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, but I want to be in court. I want to be involved in this because to me, it was the most interesting thing in the world of how this occurs. And then what's this process that is designed to hold people responsible? So it's just always been a natural interest.
And is there any background in your family, any history of law enforcement or practicing law?
Yeah, not law enforcement, but my dad was an attorney. And so he had some impact on me. He and my mom got divorced when I was very, very little. So I don't have a lot of memory of him in the house. But as I got older, I would obviously spend some time with him and I would watch him in court. Now, in small town West Virginia, you did everything. But what I thought was cool was that the times he was in court, the interaction with people, and he did handle some criminal cases as a defense attorney, not many, but to see those, there was something about the arena and the environment of being able to go into court and really mix it up with people, whether it's opposing counsel, then have the jury and try to lay out the facts. Which was fascinating to me. And at that point, I was probably 10, 11 years old. And I said, I want to go to law school. This is what I want to get into.
Well, that's awesome. And, I think when a lot of people think of prosecutors, district attorneys, they think of people in suits behind desks just reading through case files. But the reality of it is, and those of us that have been around long enough know that even in your line of work, that you're constantly exposed to trauma, victims, grieving families, just horrific crimes. At what point in your career did you realize the emotional weight that your job carries?
It was when I started. So after a couple of years in the office, when I started doing crimes against children, that's when the cases got much heavier, and you're dealing with typically physically and or sexually abused kids. And then what you started to realize is the dynamic that often is at play in those cases is that the young victims, and it's unfortunate, you guys know this, they blame themselves for what someone else did to them. And then the family dynamic becomes, the family is split, because typically it's the offender is somebody who has reoccurring access to the child, whether it's a relative or whether it's just somebody who's friends with the family, but they have reoccurring access to the child. So then the loyalties within the family get split. People side with the defendant, and people side with the young victims. And that's when it was really became like heavy. Like, you knew it was like, this is different, because, you know, for me, that was not my experience growing up. I mean, I came out of a divorced home, but I still had a supportive mom, a supportive stepdad. I didn't deal with those issues. And being in a rural place, to see that, to have families have that schism and that split, and to deal with those victims that were blaming themselves and there was pressure being put on them, that's when you realize this is a tough deal.
Wow. It's interesting, Jason. When I first got hired, to be honest, like, I didn't perceive the district attorney's office to be so much as a partner as I obviously feel now. Like, back then, it's like I was a young kid on patrol. I had no interest. I didn't care for the first 2 years if the offender got released or not. You know, my line of thinking was, oh, well, he doesn't get fouled down, I'll catch him tomorrow. It's something else to chase after, right?
Right.
But then you start working with these DAs, and there are so many parallels between DAs and the police, particularly investigators on our side. You know, you see the same photographs, the care, being meticulous, being organizational is paramount. But in my career, I've progressed so much, and you know, I never had any negative thoughts about the DA, but just how far my thinking has become, just being more mature, and how much of a team it is, and how important it is to be in tandem with you guys. It's amazing. But I think that was more of our line of thinking back when I started, like in 2000. I think overall, when our officers start now, it's more in line to what I think now, which is good.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
Very important team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason, can you share, and I'm sure you can remember your first major case, the one that really stuck with you, that case that just kept you up at night?
Yeah, probably pretty early on into the Crimes Against Children unit, I had a case in which a pastor and his wife were basically running a halfway house. And obviously there were different people inside of the home with struggles, addiction struggles primarily. And it turned out their 4-year-old daughter was literally squeezed to death by someone in the house. And the child was left into the bathtub, and it was an empty bathtub. It wasn't a drowning case. It was kind of a whodunit. And it just was, I just remember, number one, her age and the irony of the parents trying to do the right thing. One of the people in the house got frustrated with a little girl. She was babysitting the girl, and literally suffocated her by squeezing her to death. And I'll never forget, I went to that autopsy, and it was my second autopsy, but it was my first autopsy with a child. And she was 4 years old. And there's two things that stood out to me. She was the same age as my daughter at the time. And I remember her on the table as the pathologist was beginning the autopsy, and her toenails and fingernails were painted. And I thought to myself, my goodness, I mean, here's a little girl that somebody treasured. And not long before this happened, somebody painted her toes and her fingernails, and there she is laying, she's dead. And, and then that's when you really go, okay, you need to make sure you do the right thing on this case. So yeah, that was kind of the case that, that stuck with me, at least initially. In my younger years as a prosecutor, I've had more But I'll never forget that little girl, her family, and just, those. It's weird, right? It's really weird to think that your memory is of a little girl whose toes and fingernails were painted. So pretty precious.
Wow. And you worked crimes against children for over a decade, close to 13 years, if I'm not mistaken, which is obviously very heavy work. How do you investigate and prosecute those type of cases involving children, being a father yourself, without becoming cynical about humanity?
That's a great question, Jaime. Initially, it was hard to not be cynical because of the volume of the cases that you get, and you see the depravity that can happen, particularly with people that have the moral and legal obligation to take care of kids, and it's just the opposite. Obviously, fortunately for me, as Ryan said in the bio, I've been married for 30 years, going on 31 years. It certainly helps to meet the love of your life and have, for me, what is just the perfect mate to support. We have different skill sets. And so it's nice that we can talk about different things. Compartmentalizing obviously helps. Being able to spend time with kids that in a way that gets you away from the trauma of the day certainly helps. And I'll tell you this, Jaime and Ryan, one of the great things about when you do crimes against children, we were in a unit. So I had 3 other people in the unit, and those folks are invaluable in terms of decompressing. And so you talk to them and you escape that world by talking to them about what are their likes, who are their significant others, what do they do? And it was good. So all of that combined helps you get away from the cynicism. And the reality is you realize that the vast majority of people are not involved in that kind of conduct. You just got to make sure that you understand what you're dealing with. Those dynamics is, you keep it in the workplace and don't take it home.
And to add to that, I think the reality of it is, even in our line of work, that having a bit of cynicism is what divides mediocre between good, right? And then good and great. If you weren't cynical, then we would trust everybody, right? We'd have faith in everything and everybody, and nobody would ever get prosecuted because you would believe everything every suspect says. So I think it's important for everybody to know that in our line of work, it is important to have a little bit of cynicism because it's what makes us good investigators and good district attorneys and good police officers, but just not to the point where it consumes us and controls what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, you make a great point, and let me add this. One of the challenges in really serious crimes against children cases is when you're trying those cases in front of a jury, most of your jury members, they don't even fathom some of the evil that you see. So jury selection was spent a lot of time talking about what you just said, which is you've got to let the jury know this type of thing happened, because everybody wants to, it's repugnant, right? The jurors don't want to think that this happens, and it doesn't happen in their life. So you've got to get them sort of on board with the idea of getting over this idea of completely innocence and them being skeptical of why it is these kids are being treated the way they are. So that's a great point you made. So we were always concerned about jurors going, this is so bad, there's no way this actually happened, right? Because the defense oftentimes was kids were making it up. So we really had to kind of, what you just said, we kind of had to get a little buy-in of the jurors, the potential jurors, to go, are you cynical enough to understand that this type of thing happens? And if people weren't, we would exclude them as jurors, because I don't think they could be fair.
Wow, great point.
Yeah. Hey, Jason, hearing you talk about all your years in child crimes makes you think about stuff that, Jaime and I see out in the field, but you're experiencing the exact same things. I'm sure you wake up at 2, 3 in the morning with random memories of stuff way back then, in addition to your current duties. But, right now, the public is well versed with officer wellness. But the reality is your prosecutors, they see the exact same photos we see. They see evidence, testimony. I know you do a great job at wellness on your end as a DA, but I think as a whole for the public, they really don't think about prosecutor wellness. Why do you think that is?
I think because as first responders, you guys are literally there in the moment, right? You're dealing with the emotions. You're literally dealing with sometimes seconds after the crime has occurred. So it's as raw as it can possibly be. So then I think the public thinks, well, by the time it makes it to the courthouse and the office and some guy in a suit, it's been sanitized, right? It's just kind of this, instead of it being in real time, it's kind of become one dimensional. So that I think that's kind of the idea of that. Prosecutors just really don't deal. They deal with it in the esoteric and all the theoretical, but not the way first responders deal with it, with the five senses. Your five senses are kicking in when you're on the scene of the worst case, or you're dealing with the crimes against a child who's talking about being tortured or scalded with hot water or sexually abused. You're there. We read it, and we eventually talk to the victim, but it's after. So I think that's always been kind of the perspective of prosecutors have not really been included until recently in that wellness discussion that you're talking about, Ryan.
Yeah, I mentioned this last episode, but there was a call in Pomona a few years ago where there was a fire, and two 11, 13-year-old sisters were killed in a fire. And I saw the BWC. I wasn't on scene. I was working IA at the time, and I saw the BWC later of the officers responding, and it just shook me to the core. And I felt guilty because who am I, a IA guy at my desk, to be traumatized by watching videos, not the first responders. And then my wife told me that there's actually a thing. There's been studies where people who view BWC, very similar to how your prosecutors view it after the fact, or testimony, or read reports, where they could put themselves in that situation and their mind tricks them, and they have almost or the same amount of trauma as people on scene. So people don't realize that you guys are right in the thick of it, and you guys bond with victims even more than we do, at least at the patrol officer level.
Yeah, it's one of the memories I have is sitting in the waiting room at Loma Linda Medical Center as somebody's young 3-month-old daughter was dying as a result of being abused by a babysitter, and you just sit there, and it's they're dealing with an emotion that I've never had to deal with, but you're seeing it in real time, and you're having to explain to them what the DA's office response is going to be. So you're right. I mean, it's come a long way, though. Wellness has come a long way. It's nice to see. I think people are more willing to talk about it, to deal with it. And again, I go back, Ryan, to your colleagues. I mean, the nice thing is you're around similarly situated people that are all dealing with the same stress. So the release among your colleagues is one of the greatest things about the office environment that I love.
Yeah. Jason, in your experience, what's the biggest misconception from the public about prosecutors?
Well, number one, that we file every case. And you guys know, as law enforcement officers, we do not. And oftentimes you guys get mad that we don't.
I will tell you, file a lot more than Los Angeles County. So thank you for that. God bless America.
Maybe it's coming back. Maybe it's coming back for you guys.
It is. But LA County is.
So the misperception is that every case that law enforcement investigates and submits to the DA's office is filed. And that's just not the case. Generally, we review somewhere in the neighborhood of 65,000 cases a year in San Bernardino County, and we file about 45,000 cases. So anywhere between 15 and 20,000 cases are not filed for different reasons. But that's the biggest perception that people have, that we file every case. I talk to enough community groups, and they're shocked when they hear the number of cases that we get versus the number of cases that we file. The other misperception is that, prosecutors don't care about people, that we're just these robots that all we want to do is get convictions. And if we get enough convictions, they give us a gold coin, or we win a car, or all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just not that. It's not the way. I mean, it's the way. It's separation of powers, and it's designed to be a very adversarial setting. And so, prosecutors are charged with enforcing the law, and that's what we do. But the people that I've worked with for over 25 years are some of the most sympathetic, empathetic, down-to-earth people. And what's wonderful about the DA's office is the diversity within the office. And I mean diversity across every level, right? The majority of our prosecutors in San Bernardino County are females, right?
Really?
Yeah, Hispanic females. And it doesn't, nobody cares about that. It just happens to be, but that's consistent with the demographics in San Bernardino County.
Sure.
But politically, it's completely different. I mean, not everybody's watching the same news show or listening to the same radio or the same music. It's really it's a cool place. But at the end of the day, people want to make sure that the community's safe.
Yeah. Yeah, Jason, referenced my comment. Ever since I was a patrol cop, it was always like, San Bernardino was like, you don't mess around in San Bernardino because they file cases, So
Right.
It's really cool that you continue that tradition.
Yeah.
And yeah, our new DA Hoffman is way better than our older one. Before, he's doing a great job, thank God. But no, thank you for San Bernardino County for always supporting us. It's a lot to us when we get good arrests and you guys actually care and file stuff that should be filed.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Jason, of all the cases that you've prosecuted on a personal level, or even on your level as a DA, has there ever been one where you've been up at night and kind of had a moral, ethical dilemma of what the right outcome should be if it wasn't even what actually happened?
I've never struggled with a case where I knew we could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I've had cases in which I thought, what was the appropriate sentence on a case? So the beautiful thing about being a prosecutor is if you investigate a case and you work it up and you can go to a supervisor and go, I don't think this can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, then that case is going to go away. And so you don't have to wrestle morally with that. But the sentence of what's the appropriate thing to have happen in a case, the tough thing, Ryan, is that obviously we've all been there. I've handled cases in which, people got away with stuff. And those are the tough things, right? So morally, you realize at some point the process is just not going to allow you to be able to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And somebody has done something to someone horrible, and they're not going to be held responsible.
I always wondered, Jason, so if you were to not get a ruling in your favor, guilty or not guilty, when you were a prosecutor, I know everyone's different. If you lose a case that you're vested in, like, does that affect you for a long time? Are you mad for the day, or how do you process that?
It's a great question. It stings really hard and really quickly. And then if you're honest with yourself, you process through it. You can see that it's likely as a result of mistakes that you made as a prosecutor. That is the reason why you weren't able to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. So you go from that anger to the jurors to self-reflection of, I could have done better. And I'll be honest with you, nobody likes to lose. Everybody has. I've lost cases. Now I know in a position of managing the office, I now can relate that to young prosecutors that I hire. And they are very glad that I tell them that there were times when I really sucked as a lawyer. And this is why. Don't do these things. And I think that vulnerability has helped young people, particularly in the new generation, who they're scared to death to fail, right? I mean, this new generation is, they're scared to death. And I hate to say that, but we all know that's true. To let them off the hook, listen, you're going to make mistakes, but let me tell you the mistakes I made. And this is the reason why. So I'm glad I had those experiences to hopefully avoid that going forward.
That's awesome. You said that was a great question. That was a greater answer. That's really good.
So I'm going to jump on it here, Jason. You were elected your district attorney for your first term in 2018, correct?
Yes.
And during that time, there was still very diminished trust in the criminal justice system as a result of a number of incidents that occurred in the years preceding, right? Michael Brown, Ferguson, Eric Garner, Freddie Gray. I can go on the list. And law enforcement and the criminal justice system was heavily being questioned during that time, in those years before you were elected and when you were elected in 2018. Walking into that climate as a leader, what was your mindset?
I mean, what I saw that was really the origin of the criticism of the criminal justice system is people were underinformed and misinformed about how the criminal justice system worked. And so we've seen in history that whenever you're misinformed or underinformed, it's very easy to be critical of something. The non-subject matter experts were taking over the narrative of the criminal justice system. What I did when I came in and I sat down with my managers, so I got elected in June of 2018. I didn't take office until 2019. So I had a lot of meetings with the managers that were going to still be in place when I came in. And I said, guys, I said, here's what we need to do. I'm going to establish what I'm going to call the Community Commission. And I'm going to ask, in our county, we have 5 districts that are represented by a supervisor in each district. So 5 supervisors. And I said, I'm going to go to each supervisor and I'm going to ask them to nominate 3 people from their district to form a community commission with me. I'm not going to pick them because I don't want it to be an echo chamber or a yes man kind of deal. I don't care about stuff like that. And I said, I want these folks to come in and I'm going to meet with them every 3 months and I'm going to tell them how the criminal justice system works. The only way I can make a difference is if I start at the local level and educate people. I'm not a particularly bright guy, but I do know one area very well, the criminal justice system. I'm a one-trick pony. It's all I've ever done. I've taught it for 22 years. So I don't say that to be prideful, but I say that to mean there's not a single issue in the criminal justice system that a member of the public can't ask me that I can't accurately inform them on how it works. And that's what we did. And we've been doing it since 2019. And it has been great in terms of turning. And these are the people that have been nominated are community members, right? They're leaders. And so it's been great to open the discussion to to them and go, this is how the system works. They're shocked. And so that's what I tried to do, is to come in and really educate people about, instead of them operating under a misconception, and giving them the chance to examine it and have some say in it. And it's worked out real well.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, snooping through online and the DA's website, your mission statement talks about balancing accountability, compassion, and honoring humanity of everyone involved in the justice system. Now, we all know that sounds really good on paper, but those of us in the profession, in our line of work, in your line of work, we know that some of those things conflict. How difficult is it for you to strike that balance between keeping all that?
I think the best way to do it is, in an adversarial system, is you give the defense attorneys, whether it's a public defender or a private attorney, you give them the ability to try to advocate on behalf of their client as much as they can. So you want them to provide to you the human element and the origin of why their client may be committing the crimes that they're committing. And if you understand that, then I think in some capacity, you can better understand, is there a path to get this person out of the system? Right now, I will tell you that since I've been the DA, we have had a number of special circumstances cases where the jury has returned death penalty verdicts. Right. So when I talk about humanity, it's not just singular. It's an entire spectrum. The humanity of the victims. Right. If you murder multiple people, then the humanity is going to reveal that there are certain people that need to be separated from society as long as possible. But there's also a group of folks that are struggling with addiction and mental health issues, and being raised in a family perhaps that they weren't lucky enough or fortunate enough to be raised in a family I was, and you look at those things. And so that's really what I wanted the perspective to be when I came in, is it wasn't just file everything and go for the max. It was, let's allow the system of the justice system to operate in some ways as an art instead of just a process. And so I wanted to make sure that my colleagues understood that if there were situations in which somebody could make a compelling argument that they deserved a break on something, that we would listen. And we've done that, right? We've done that. So that's kind of what I mean by that. I think that, again, I have a great relationship with so many people in the justice system in our county. I think our approach on that, it's hard to get into the nuances, but, there's maybe a reason why I've never been opposed since I've run for the DA twice. I think I get what the process is. And so the idea that the defendants and their attorneys have the ability to look at our mission statement and go, hey, will you consider the humanity of my client? I think that's what I mean.
Hey, Jason, along the lines of leadership, I've had the pleasure of going to maybe the last 4 years of your guys' Christmas party, employee Christmas party for the DA's office. And I see the way you connect with your people. Like you get up there and you make a speech every year. And it just doesn't sound scripted. It is sincere, I could tell. I've seen at other agencies where police chiefs, it's totally scripted and the troops see right through it.
Yeah.
That's definitely not you. You make an effort to go literally to every single employee and talk not just to them, but to their spouse. And I could just see how like special it is to them. And your sincerity just is blatant. Tell me a little bit about that line of thinking, and also what other tenets of leadership do you operate by?
I appreciate that, Ryan. I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm really good at remembering names. And I think that people really appreciate when you know their name and you know their spouse's name and you know what they do. I have to say that I think it's just being raised in a very, very small town in very rural West Virginia, very humble. I could have turned out a lot different, right? I could have been running the roads and back in a pickup truck, and who knows what I could have been involved in and where I would have ended up. And so I'm always very grateful for the position I'm in as a leadership. But the folks that go to court every day and deal with the high volume of cases that we have, I remember those days, and those case volumes have only gotten higher. I'm in a position where I don't have to worry about that. I'm obviously, consumed with other things. And I just really appreciate the folks that want to work in public service, particularly in the DA's office. So that's my way of being able to hopefully connect with them and let them know how much I appreciate them, because I know that always made an impact on me when I was coming up. If I had a manager that knew my name or remembered my kids' names or a special event in their life, it just made a difference to me. And I always told myself, if I'm in a position to return that, I want to be able to do it.
Yeah. Awesome. It shows. Really good news. Good on you.
We always talk about, the younger generation versus today and the older generation. I'm curious, what do you think younger prosecutors today struggle with compared to, yourself or earlier generations?
So I think the younger prosecutors are shocked at the volume of cases that they have to handle. And that volume has gone up. And I think that it's hard for them to understand that I've got to manage 30 to 35 cases. That's a difficult beginning to think, how can I keep up with all these cases? How can I work up all these cases? So I think the volume hits them a little bit because the younger generation is sort of used to one thing at a time and, working on it. I also, again, it goes back to what I say, the younger generation is very concerned about the perception that they're not as good as their colleague or that they're failing. And somehow that's going to equate to, we just think that, you're not ever going to measure up. And that's not true. So we send that message. So they struggle with that concern. When I came up, we never went to a supervisor. If we had a question, we asked a colleague. If we made a mistake, we asked a colleague. And we didn't go ask questions of a supervisor. We figured it out. And that's what I want my folks to be able to do, because those are the lessons that you learn the longest and stay with you the best. So I realize it's a different generation. Sometimes I know I sound like I'm that old guy, standing in the grass saying, get off of my lawn. Connect with those younger folks and say, it's okay to fail. There's no way you're going to be able to handle 30 or 40 cases a week as a new prosecutor when many times you're going up against seasoned defense attorneys and not get your lunch handed to you. It's okay. That's why you're handling misdemeanors, right? So, okay, you lost the case where a guy stole $100 out of Target. Let me tell you something. Target got the property back. We'll get the guy next time. Okay. You're not a loser. Nobody's going to shame you and the whole deal. So.
Hey, Jason, when you mentioned public defenders or defense attorneys, was there ever anything that public defenders did as a tactic to you that you knew you should not swallow or go for it, like your kryptonite, and you just, damn it, he got me, like you would react emotionally to? What would they do to you?
Yeah. So early on, when you went up against really good defense attorneys, what happens as a young prosecutor is all you think about is your case in chief, and you're thinking about, what do I need to get admitted into evidence? What are the questions I need to ask on direct? What's the foundation I need to lay to get this record in? And you're not anticipating what the defenses could be. So when you go up against a seasoned attorney and you're in trial or you're in front of a judge in a hearing, and they kind of, start pulling the rug out from underneath you because you're missing an element or something, my face would get really, really red. And my colleagues would sit in the back and watch. And back in the day, we used to watch each other because that's how we learned. And everybody would go back in the office and go, well, we knew you were losing it, Anderson, because your face got so red. And that was my tell. So I really had to work on, like, number one, it taught me, okay, you need to start anticipating what's the defense in these cases. So it made me a better lawyer. I prepared better. But then I lost the tell. And then, so if things didn't go my way, I wouldn't get all worked up. My face wouldn't get red, and the defense wouldn't know that they put the button. So it's just one of those things.
That's funny. Yeah, my kryptonite was when I was on patrol was I'm driving by and not a regular citizen, but a nefarious looking individual would make a chirping sound like a police siren. that would get me.
Yep.
Jaime, how about you? Any of those?
No, you know what? I never had anybody antagonize me like that.
Yeah.
I gotta say that I got along with people pretty well. But no, never like that. Just and I can give as much as I can take. I rip people pretty hard. So it was. I always realized in the long run it was a learning process. The other thing too, Ryan, is that I understood very early on, and I try to teach young lawyers this. If somebody makes it personal, then you need to let me know about it. But normally, don't take it personal in court, right? It's an adversarial process for a reason, because we're looking for the truth. Don't necessarily take somebody who's very aggressively adversarial as personal. We're just trying to figure out what's up. You stay out of the personal realm, and then you become a better professional. And I always had that great experience. I mean, one of my closest friends is a private defense attorney, and for a year and a half, he kicked my butt. But for 20 years, he and I have taught criminal procedure together, and I'm a better lawyer because of the lessons he taught me early on. Now, if I'd have been 5, 6, 7 years in my career and kept making the same mistakes, I wouldn't be with the DA's office. So we've all been there, right? You guys, all that stuff. So whatever profession you're in, you're going to have those experiences. My kryptonite was not anticipating far enough into a case where a defense attorney was going to kind of pull the rug out from underneath me, and it was obvious I was losing my footing.
That's good stuff. Now I'm curious, Jaime, any kryptonite for you? What got you?
Yeah, earlier in my career when I was a younger, somewhat of a more immature young cop, the donuts would always get to me. You'd walk in somewhere and someone says, "Oh, are you going to get donuts or eat donuts?" And my response was always the same to people. I would never say it today, but back then it was always the same. I would tell people, "It looks like you eat more donuts than I do."
Oh, yeah.
I would never say that today. And boy, I would hammer the cops if they said that today. But that was always my little pet peeve.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell an old man story, but work in the field, and I was actually at a taco shop, but get some tacos, and there's 3 guys next to me, and one's kind of a bigger fellow, and he starts jabbing at me, and he's like, "Oh, are you going to get donuts?" And it got to me, but kind of professional. I just said, "Oh, how funny! You're asking me if I'm going to eat a donut," and his friend just ate it up. It was pretty good, but it's Jason, like you said, it's we're human. The emotion is human, but there's that professional aspect that we need to, put out there.
Yeah, and one of the better experience I've ever had is that attorneys come in, them, and just the jokes. I mean, telling jokes. I mean, I remember saying, one guy, old attorney, he had Argyle socks on, and I said something like, "Oh, I didn't realize those were back in style." Just stuff like that, or when's the suit due back to the rental shop, and all that kind of stuff, and it's just great, and so it's back and forth, and then you start realizing you have a healthy respect, and if people are in my business, if people are willing to give you a hard time, that means they like you. My daughter's in law enforcement, and I tell her that if your supervisors are not talking to you, that's a problem. But if they're giving you a hard time and asking about your work and joking, I said, then that means they realize you probably can take it, and they want to see, are you the camaraderie and all that stuff. So it's really cool.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Very cool.
Jason, I see a lot of parallels. Like, I never realized that DAs have that same sense of humor with each other that we do, as part of a defense mechanism. As you know, I'm sure, Jason, cops are some of the most funny, but yet sinister at the same time. Just it's how we kind of survive. But interesting to know that you guys do the same thing.
We do.
Jason, so you've been a DA for a long time, handled a lot of cases, and I've had the pleasure of meeting your beautiful family. What do you do to protect them from the stress that you bring home every day?
Back when the kids were younger, they're adults now. Heck, I have 2 grandkids. So, back when they were younger, you take some of the lessons away from what you learn at work. And it's funny. My daughter even mentioned to me about a month ago, she goes, Dad, whenever we would go to somebody's house, when we were young, when they had a little independence, they were 9, 10, you always ask, other than the parents, is there anybody else living in the house? Is there a cousin from somewhere? Is there an uncle from somewhere? Is there somebody that is not, because I wanted to make sure there wasn't somebody who, was strange in the house, right? So very guarded about who my kids were around when they were younger, giving them an idea of what we did for a living, but not the gory details, but that you had to go to work every day and you had to be consistent in your efforts and you had to be prepared and you couldn't let your coworkers down. And so that was the way in which we kind of trained our kids up. Never talking about specifics, but always obviously being super, super cautious about who had reoccurring access to them if they were not in our house, if that makes sense, right? Sleepovers didn't happen when the kids were very little, but as they got a little bit older, my question always was, is there anybody else in that house that is not the mom and dad that I've met? So stuff like that, just to be on the safe side.
Awesome.
Can I interject real quick, Ryan? I got something I want to say.
Please.
I was just thinking about this as Jason was talking, but as we're kind of getting into the mental health aspect of your profession, and one thing that just popped in my mind right now is I remember the point in my career that I really gained a really profound respect for the district attorney's office. And earlier in my career, I always knew that we were on the same team, but I always felt that we were different, right? We were the ones out there. Kind of like we had asked one of the earlier questions that, you're just sitting behind the desk filing the cases and we're the ones out there actually, doing the work. And it took me several years in my career to realize that wasn't true. And I'll tell you real quickly, it was the Sean Diamond case.
Yeah.
And the DA was Jack Gardner, right, Ryan?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we had this case was retried, so we had to do this. It was a few times. And I remember, a few years had passed by the time, it went to trial the first and the second time. And I remember that I had already processed a lot of this stuff. And I had got rid of a lot of this stuff. And every time I took the stand, everything came back. Mm. And it wasn't just the testimony, but there was pictures too. Some very, very graphic pictures that was cringe for most people to look at, but shocking for some of us to relive it again. And it wasn't until the second time that we went to trial that I took the stand again and testified to pretty much the same thing again. And it was the same line of questioning pretty much, and the same photos. And I remember after I left the stand, I told Jack, I don't want to do this again, man. It's very heavy. And I remember walking out of the courthouse and telling myself, man, Jack has to do this over and over and over again, right? And this is just one case of the death of a police officer. You've I'm sure dealt with, a multitude and supervised a multitude and, during your tenure as a district attorney and now a head DA. But I get a new respect for you guys because of the constant trauma like that you're exposed to over and over and over again. For me, it essentially it ends when I get off the stand. I may still think about it, but for you, you go back in the courtroom, you're doing it again, multitude witnesses over and over again. And it's heavy. I think that's the part of it that people don't see
Right.
that I realized at that point in my career, and my point of view and my perspective on what you guys do really changed that day. And I realized that trauma and PTSD and those type of things, that the face is different. It doesn't all look the same.
Yeah.
But when we interpret it, that's where the similarities are at. So
you're exactly right.
I remember that's the day in my career when I was like, you know what, I really respect what they do, because
you're exactly right.
Yeah. So sorry, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Along the same lines, Jason, I could probably answer part of this question for you, because I've been to 2 work conferences with you through my wife, and both times that I went to the gym, you were in there pressing some weight.
Yeah.
What does Jason Anderson do on a personal level to decompress from the weight of your job?
So I do really enjoy working out. And so I work out in the morning. I kind of do the old resistance training thing. And then when I'm able to, I also do CrossFit at lunch. I try to do 2 a days, at least 3 days a week. My goal is to get in 7 or 8 workouts in 5 days. And then I feel good about not working out on the weekends. I will tell you this, Ryan, I'm not a naturally creative guy. I'm not an artist at all. I'm a very regimented, my wife's an artist, my daughter's an artist, music and all that kind of stuff. I'm not that way.
Mm-hmm.
But my problem solving creativity occurs when I'm working out. And I've noticed that from a very early on when I tried cases. I could think of better things when I'm working out strenuously than if I just was trying to work it out, sitting. So I try to keep that up. So the workouts are very good. And then, just, at night, being able to compartmentalize, but it's the workouts, I think, that have really made a big difference for me. Not that I'm I'm not going to win any CrossFit events. Nobody's going to ask me to start posing on the beach, and want to look at my physique, but it is just, I've always found that it's sort of my center of, obviously you get the stress away. And it's a creative place for me to problem solve, particularly in a management position. So I try to hit it as often as I can.
Yeah, really important. I mean, I'm not a specimen like Jaime here, but
I wish.
yeah, I mean, as we get older, Jason, I'll be pushing 50 in a year and a half. But
I'm 55.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Wow, you're doing good.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, as we get older, I'm sure you agree, Jason. It's like sleep is important. Before I didn't care about sleep, and now I consciously think about when's the last meal. I don't eat past 6.
Yeah, it's great.
Not on your phone. It's like a science now. You just got to be so more conscious about it as we get older. And like you said, it's that basic working out that just gets your juices flowing. It gets that life force going, and just really important. I think it's for people listening. Just be your own doctor.
Yeah.
Get those tests, and super important.
Absolutely. I call CrossFit my European valve job. So I've had the same mechanic for 22 years. And he goes, I always like German cars. And, the check engine light comes on. He goes, well, you know how they diagnose this in Germany, don't you? And I said, no, tell me, Mario. He goes, they put the highest test gas they can possibly get, and they drive 150 miles down the Autobahn. If the check engine light goes off, then it's no big deal. And I said, so for me, CrossFit is kind of my check engine light. I would rather know, in real time, that I maybe have a latent problem and figure it out than die in my sleep. So that's kind of why I do it. It's not an ego thing. It's I want to make sure I'm here for my family. And, if there's something that's creeping around at my age, I want to know early on what that may be. But I figure if I go in there and work my butt off and my heart rate is at 170 for 25 minutes, then if I can manage that, then everything else probably is going to be okay.
Yeah. But I do find I got to stretch for 30 minutes for a 45-minute workout, or I'll pull something.
That's it.
Is it also true that you decompress by going to Dodger games?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Hey, that's a great picture. So hey, that's a throwback right there. Well done. So yes, I'm a Dodger fan. Now, when I was running, I got to know Tommy Lasorda through some mutual friends. Now, obviously, you could know why he was very much enjoyed talking to my wife, because she's incredible looking. He was so
well played, Jason. Well played.
He was so down to earth, and then subsequent Tommy and I actually got to sit next to each other for probably 3 or 4 baseball games. And I was like, this is incredible. But the guy was so down to earth. He would talk about players. He would talk about his kids, and just easy to be around. And I was very impressed with how down to earth, and it makes sense, right, from his generation when you consider where he came up from. So yeah, a big fan of his. I got his the Sports Illustrated cover that he signed. I have it in my office. It's displayed prominently, and so whenever I do a Zoom or something from the office, you can see him just in the back. It's a good
now we need another hour on this podcast just asking questions about this.
Yeah, it was something else. I was sitting there one time and my phone starts blowing up, and I'm like, why is everybody texting me? Well, I didn't realize that Nomar Garciaparra, the former Red Sox player, he's the color commentator for Spectrum, and he would do the color commentating for the Dodger game. Well, his camera was located just to the left of Tommy, and during the commercials of Spectrum, the shot would be behind the shot of Nomar Garciaparra was me and Tommy Lasorda chatting. And so whoever had Spectrum and was watching the Dodgers was texting me like, what the heck are you doing sitting in front of Tommy Lasorda? So it was, probably the only time I've ever been famous, but it was definitely a fun 15 minutes. It was pretty cool.
That is awesome. Yeah. Quick fact for some of the, maybe not Dodger fans, but Tommy Lasorda in all his fame, Dodger manager for so many years, so many world championships. Through it all, he kept his same residence. And I think, do you know Jason in Fullerton?
Yep.
It's literally like a 3-bedroom,
yep,
1,100 square foot modest home. It's kind of cool. When he passed away, there was like a big memorial in front of it, just a regular house, but super cool, dude. It seems like.
Yep. Yeah, just old school. I mean, that's they talk about the greatest generation, and that's one of the attributes of the greatest generation is they valued what they did for others and the time they spent with people, as opposed to, that guy could have afforded any house he wanted.
Yeah.
And he lived there with his wife, and it was, really, really cool. And that's the sense you got from him when you sat and talked to him.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason. So, do you think conversations about wellness has improved in the last few years within your community at the DA's office? And I'll segue into the next question. What are you doing at San Bernardino County as far as wellness for your employees?
Ryan, it's improved significantly. I remember doing crimes against children back in the mid 2000s, and there wasn't a hint of anything that was related to secondary trauma or prosecutors, like we talked about earlier in the podcast. You relied on your colleagues. Now, for the last probably 5 or 6 years, the National District Attorneys Association, the California District Attorneys Association, there are seminars specifically devoted to that. There are obviously now counselors that first responders who have retired that have gotten into the mental health realm that service only first responders, including prosecutors. It's come a long way, which is nice. And I think what's driven that is the younger generation being more open about struggling with stress, as more than what we did, guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit older than you guys, but I consider us all in the same generation. We didn't talk about it. And as guys, you just don't talk about it, right?
Yeah, you couldn't.
Now it's there. We have our own wellness team within our DA's office, and it's been phenomenal. So if there's ever any obviously overt trauma, then we reach out to those people initially. If there's a death in the family or something like traumatic happens on their cases, we reach out to them. But they also now know that they can reach out to our wellness team in private. And our wellness team now, for the last 4 months, we have our own service dog. So it's devoted completely to the wellness team. So that tells you how far it's come, right? To nothing 20 years ago, to maybe the conversation happening 6 or 7 years ago, to now an in-house team with a dog. So
how cool is that? Yeah. My son Nolan knows your service dogs well.
He does.
A great program. Great handlers. Like you said, come a long way, and it's good that you guys have paralleled law enforcement.
Yeah.
And very necessary.
Yeah. It's
right.
good.
Think about this. I mean, this is just, I didn't even know this about the DA's office, but it's great. even for the public to know something like this, that, before you have prosecutors handling cases that had pent up trauma, right? That had all this stuff, and there was no avenue, just like early in law enforcement, right? It was taboo. You couldn't do it. You were weak if you did it. You were a coward if you thought, you reached out and told someone that you were suffering from trauma or mental health. It wasn't a thing then. And to know now that not just our police officers, but our prosecutors are also, that there are also avenues available, and there's wellness programs, and that they're taking proactive steps to address PTSD, to address trauma for wellness reasons, so that, and if we look at it, we boil all this down, at the end of the day, it's so that we can perform better, right?
Exactly right. Yeah,
you have a better mind, better soul,
exactly
better body, you're just going to perform better. So I think it's great too for those that don't know that even the district attorney's offices, they're big into wellness and mental health, and you guys are taking care of yourselves so that when you come to work, that you're neutral and you have a clean plate and you're doing the best work that you can. And to hear that's so impressive to me, that even our district attorneys are taking that approach too, and they're realizing that after all these years, that hey, we suffer too, and we need to take proactive steps to address that. So it's great to hear that, and I hope that that just by this episode coming out, that people understand that even the district attorney's office is taking steps to better too.
For our generation, you said it perfectly, Jaime. I could not have summarized that any better than what you just did. The performance for our generation is it keeps you up on being able to drive why you continue to do it the next day. With the younger generation, you guys probably understand it from an administrative standpoint with your younger officers. It's now about retention. So you need to be able to have your younger folks realize that you care, and you have tangible ways of showing that you're sensitive to understanding that they're going to need to express themselves more quickly and more openly and feel good about it than what we did. Right. So that's those two things. So our big thing is we want to make sure that the good people that come to the door, that we retain them because they know the organization cares.
Yeah. Retention is so important. Law enforcement to you guys. And as you know, Jason, 20, 25 years ago, a captain we hear about a police officer having issues, like, toughen up, right?
That's it.
But now we're at a stage where we need to evolve and adapt to them. Number one, because we genuinely care.
Yeah, absolutely.
But number two, like you said, retention. If we don't, they're just going to go to somebody else that is going to care about them.
Yeah.
Such an important issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, good point, Ryan. It's, two, we've also seen in the generational gap, and I'm not sure if that's the case with the DA's office as well, but, before you just shut up and suck it up. And now you just said it perfectly. If you're not taking care of them, then they're just going to go somewhere else where they're being taken care of. And, that I have seen that, not just in Pomona, but it's prevalent everywhere.
Yeah.
That folks, they feel they're not taken care of, and they and they take off. So, we pride ourselves, at least at Pomona, that, we like to think that we do a good job with wellness and we stay on top of things. And a lot of times it's not the big things, it's the little things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like you said earlier, getting to know people's names, and, you pride yourself in knowing, the names of the people that work underneath you, and getting to know maybe the names of the significant others. And, it's those little details, I think, that are important, right? Because we could have the big wellness events and all these other things, but I think it's those day-to-day things, those little things that really count and really make people want to stick around.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Good to hear that. So, Jason, in your position now as a DA of San Bernardino County, if you could sit down with a brand new prosecutor named Jason Anderson on their first day, what advice would you give yourself? Looking back now on your career?
Take a deep breath. You can only handle one case at a time. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. And don't be afraid to admit that you made a mistake. And typically, it's going to come from lack of preparation. So the mistakes that I made was literally just not preparing well enough. And in my business, in the courtroom, that's who's going to win the day. So going back, that's the advice I would give. Take a deep breath. You're going to make mistakes, but you can overcome that by out preparing your opponent, and that's generally going to win the day. And I would rather young people learn that sooner rather than later. And so that's the advice that I would give myself. And the other thing I would say is that you're gonna experience things that there's not a single book that could ever come up with anything more interesting than what you're going to see in the full spectrum of human events, both horrible and great. And I don't think you'd really be able to cherish the great if you also didn't experience the horrible and the evil. And that's what that in our line of work, your guys' line of work and my line of work, that's the richness of what we do. And it's the consideration that you pay. All the trauma that we've talked about is that when you see the greatest thing in humanity, you also only respect that because you've seen the worst in humanity. I mean, I've had cases, I've attended weddings and graduations from victims. And it's been some of the greatest experiences of my life, but it's born out of horrible, horrible circumstances. So, soaking that up and realizing that's going to be the journey. That's what I would tell a young Jason Anderson. Be thankful that you get to see really the two different spectrums.
That's awesome.
Wow. Well said.
Along the same lines, today in briefing, I went to talk to my patrol cops and asked them this question. And I'm going to ask you, give me 2 traits that you think are the most invaluable in any prosecutor.
Well, honesty is the number one trait. You have to, you're the only thing you control as a prosecutor is your reputation. And your reputation starts with being honest. And that forges the way in which people look at you, whether it's defense attorney, whether it's victims, whether it's witnesses, whether it's judges and your colleagues. That honesty stands through. Is the main thing. The other thing is you need to be humble. It's hard to remove yourself in very difficult cases, but you have to understand that the cases are about what's happened to people, and it's your job to make that come to life in front of a jury. Jaime, you were talking about the Sean Diamond case, right? You lived it, so nobody has to stoke you for you to recall your 5 senses. But that jury sitting there, they were not there. They didn't see what you saw. They didn't hear what you heard. Prosecutors have to make that come to life for jurors, right? And so the idea of being all in, those are the 2 things that I would say, Ryan, is that you got to be honest, but making cases come to life are about what happened, the victims. It's not about the prosecutor. I liken this to young prosecutors. I hope this makes sense. You can go to a 5-star restaurant and the food can be great, but if the service is bad, you're never going back. You can go to a 2-star restaurant, and if the service is incredible, I'll go back to the 2-service restaurant every time. And here's what I mean: service. You never even knew a waiter or waitress was at your table, but your water was always filled, your plates were always bussed, your food was phenomenal. Every need was anticipated before you ever had to ask for it, but it was like nobody ever showed up at your table. I mean, think about it. We've all had that experience. I tell my young prosecutors, that's how you should be. They should see the case. And that's what I mean by the humble aspect of it.
Jason, it's interesting with your answer there. We talk about the parallels between law enforcement and your side of the house. So today when I went to briefing, the 2 overwhelming answers were right in line with yours, and that's integrity and compassion.
Yeah.
It's almost in the same ballpark. Very interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, great answer. Looking back on your long career, what accomplishment would you say that you're most proud of that the public probably doesn't know, and maybe it's private? A lot of your own subordinates and coworkers may not know.
I've been in cases where I can honestly say, and not many, but in a couple, that you were in a position to truly turn someone's life around. One of those was a human trafficking case that I prosecuted before human trafficking was ever on the map. Nobody cared about it. Prostitutes were looked at as suspects, and it was a horrible case. And I chased the victim around for a year and a half all over the country. We successfully prosecuted the pimp. That girl's life was turned around. She has kids. She's in a stable marriage. She reunited with her family. She comes back every year to Southern California and trains on human trafficking. And the path she was going down would have been a path where she would have ended up dead. So that's one of the lasting things. I don't talk about that a lot, but it's a reward. As a leadership position as a DA, you develop relationships. Some of the lasting things have actually happened outside of the courtroom, where because of relationships I've had with other people in the county, I've been in a position to facilitate people being able to adopt a child or to foster a child and actually adopt that kid. That's happening right now. And I tell you, that's I would have never in my wildest dreams would have ever thought as a DA that you could, through relationships, facilitate somebody that has a child. I mean, it's just weird. So you're real thankful. You're very thankful that you're in a position of leadership, and you hope that you administer it the right way, that there's some lasting foundations in the organization. So that's what I take away is, guys, the reality is in 10 years, nobody's going to remember who I am, but nobody's going to care who Jason Anderson is. My phone's not going to ring. But what I hope is in the time I've had as a DA is that people look back and go, like what you were talking about, Ryan, the integrity, the honesty, the care, the personal touch, those were the hallmarks, right?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's great. If there was one thing you could change about the criminal justice system tomorrow, what would it be?
This is probably my favorite question ever asked on Whiskey and War Stories. I'm hanging on your every word, Jason.
Yeah, it's the most inefficient. It's the most inefficient process that we have in government. It's ridiculous that cases are allowed to drag on as long as they drag on. In California, there's literally no finality to cases, despite what the Constitution says about finality and victims' rights. And that sounds a little bit cliche, but let me give you some recent examples. The case in Texas between the two high school students that just finished in the track meet where the young man was accused of murdering the other kid. Within a year of that happening, verdict, sentence. Parkland shooting several years ago in Florida, mass shooting in Parkland, Florida. Within 2 years of the shooting, the kid was tried and sentenced. If you remember, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, the Thanksgiving Day parade in Wisconsin, where that crazy guy drove over the crowd and killed like 3 or 4 people and injured like 10 others. Within 2 years, that he represented himself. That case was over in 2 years, right? In California, we just finished a death penalty case last year that was 13 years old. It's the inability for our lawmakers and our leaders in this state to understand that the social infrastructure of the criminal justice system is not an unending resource. It has to be pursued and processed with efficiency because it does everybody a disservice. That's what I would change.
Well,
wow.
Great answer.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So as we kind of cap this episode off, we'd like to ask the same question of all of our guests. At the end of the day, how do you want people to remember Jason Anderson?
That's a good question. Hopefully they remember me being taller than I really am. Maybe through camera. No, I'm kidding. I always joke that our podium at the DA's office is only 2.5 feet tall, so it looks like I tower above it. There, see, it's a great picture of it right there. Look at that. That podium's unfortunately Shannon Dykes is over 6 feet, so I
it looks like a
would have been a different sheriff last time around. What I think, Jaime, what I would say is that my goal has always been to be the same person I was the day before I got elected than I will be the day after I step out of office. I want to be the same guy. I want to be that guy that everybody knew in 1997 and 1998 when he joined the DA's office. That's the same guy that you get whenever he retires, let's say sometime in 2030 something. That's really my goal. So, and I think that's what resonates with people is it's consistency. They can count on you and they know the real deal. They know what they're getting with you. And it's not Anderson, the DA. He's some fake politician. It's Anderson, the guy who was raised in a town with no stoplight, that used to ride his bike to a double wide trailer and read real crime novels. And that's the same guy. So that's always been my goal.
That's awesome.
Well, very humble.
Hey, Jason, my wife wants me to refer to you as the DA.
That was so funny. Yeah, that was so fun. It's a great shot. That was us in Bosnia.
How'd that go?
Oh, it was incredible. I got asked by the State Department about 11 weeks ago to go to Bosnia and train their judges and prosecutors in their justice system. And it was a great experience. Jackie covered it. She covered it so well that the embassy was using her as their PR person, their PAO for an afternoon.
Oh, wow.
It was really neat. But yeah, yesterday we had a retirement ceremony for our outgoing retired bureau chief, Eric Hopley, and Rodney. Somebody thought it would be funny to refer to me as the Jason Anderson. The only other time I do that when you watch college football in the fall, and it's the Ohio State. So yeah. Don't get carried. I said don't get carried away. It doesn't make me any taller, and it doesn't make me any smarter. Just because you capitalize the T, the H, and the E, it has absolutely no effect.
Well, Jason, it's been fun. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, been my honor. Thanks, guys.
Oh, for sure. I'm kind of a student of leadership. I don't consider myself a leader, but I've been through a lot of classes and experiences. But a lot of the tenets that I've learned, I mean, you exhibit them in your everyday life. Your county is very lucky to have you.
Thanks.
And we're honored to have you.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here.
Yep.
And good luck on your next, is it 3 or 4 year term?
It'll start 4 years in January. So it starts 2027 and it'll go till 3031.
Yeah. So I live in Chino Hills in your county. So
yep.
I am at peace knowing that if someone commits a crime, if the evidence is there, they are going to be prosecuted.
Thanks. Yeah,
Thank
absolutely. I mean, it's the way it works. So I really appreciate that.
Sure.
It's just an honor to be in that spot. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 years.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason.
Yep.
Jaime, anything?
Yeah. I feel compelled to tell this very quick, very funny story to Jason, only because it involved the head DA of LA County. And I swear I feel like I should write a book about this someday or something. But a few people know about this story. But it was probably my second year as a police officer, young, dumb, immature as a cop, and at that point, we had got subpoenas by paper. They were carbon copies.
Yep.
And on the subpoenas, it would have your case number, LA County case number, and every single subpoena had the head DA's name on it, Steve Cooley, and then it would have the number underneath, which was obviously the witness coordinator or whatever the case was. So you might know where this is going.
I think I know where this is going.
I was on an on-call case, and I can't remember what it was. It was very frivolous, something very minor, and a year-and-a-half cop, and I call the number on the subpoena. And the witness coordinator answers, and I said, hey, this is Officer Martinez from Pomona PD. I'm working on a case with Steve Cooley. That's at the time I just thought that's whose name the handling the case was on the subpoena. So, and if you don't remember, Steve Cooley was the head DA of LA from about 2000 to about, he did like 12 or 13 years, so about 2012 or 2013.
At least three terms. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
So the witness coordinator said, well, let me get you to his admin assistant. Trust me to a nice young lady. I said, hey, I'm working on a case with Steve.
That's a good story.
The case number doesn't look familiar, but let me transfer you to his office. So I went to voicemail. I left him a voicemail, and he called me back a couple hours later.
Nice.
And he said, hey, this is Steve. I said, hey, Steve, this is Jaime from Pomona PD. I said, hey, you have me on this on-call case. Do you know if you're going to need me or not? Because I have plans. And he was like, what? What's the case number? What's going on?
Yep.
And I'm like, I got the subpoena for an on-call, and here's the case number. I just want to know if you need me in court. And he was like, no, you got this all wrong. He's like, you're not looking for me. He's like, let me transfer you back to my to my secretary.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was that short, but I had realized what an imbecile I must have looked like to the head DA when he was like, who the hell is this rookie boot cop like calling me
That's
about
a good story.
That's a great. I mean, that's a great story. I'm sure he tells that story with as much joy as you tell it. That brings him as much joy as it brings you.
This young, stupid Pomona cop called me on this trivial, minute case, and so I just figured
that's good.
I love it. I would share that story that I've always kept with me for my career. I thought it was very funny.
That is a good one.
To close up, like Ryan said, San Bernardino County is very, very fortunate, very lucky to have you as their 36th district attorney. And obviously, you being reelected multiple times is a testament to your hard work to the county. So we want to thank you. We want to thank you for coming on this show. And as we wrap up this episode, as is customary with every episode, we cheers to a specific whiskey. This particular episode, we were gifted a bottle. It's Warrior Dog Spirit. And for those of you of our followers that recall, our guest was Jose Pila on season 3. You could catch him. He is the owner of Warrior Dog Spirit. It's a veteran-owned whiskey company. This particular whiskey is called Stubby Sergeant, and it's bottled local here in Joshua Tree, and it's a great whiskey.
Nice.
So thank you, Jose. Thank you for being our past guest. Thank you for providing a bottle for our show. If you're a whiskey drinker, I recommend you either purchasing it online or it's in several stores. So thank you, and we'll cheers to Warrior Dog Spirit.
Cheers.
Right. Cheers.
Jason, any closing comments to take us home?
No, it's it's great. It's the key is that as you go forward, I'm obviously glad about getting another 4 years. You've got to stay ahead of the challenges. You've got to anticipate what's going to come up. We're always battling legislation. We're always all that stuff, and I've got a great team around me, so I'm looking forward to it. We've had a change in our Bureau of Investigation with longtime, very experienced chief retiring Eric Copley, Chad Mayfield coming in, so that's exciting. We're eager, looking forward to continuing, hopefully, our good, consistent work. And this is fun to be able to. It really helps me when you guys ask these poignant questions that I don't typically think about, to talk through it, because it really starts to trigger. Okay, what do I need to examine in my office? What do I need to be better at? So thank you guys for challenging me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on, Jason.
Yeah. Thank you. And with that'll cap off season 4, episode 3 with our special guest, Jason Anderson. Stay tuned for the episode coming soon on YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram. And on that, we're closing out. Thanks again, Jason. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Good night.
Good night, guys.